Oh, hello! Did you know that thousands of professionals earning over $150,000 a year are quietly looking at their bank accounts right now and realizing they are completely broke? You might think a six-figure salary is the ultimate golden ticket to permanent financial security, but for a massive wave of corporate workers, it has actually become an expensive, high-velocity trap that is destroying their mental sanity. Well, today I will show you why high earners across the globe are voluntarily stepping down from their high-paying positions, intentionally taking 50% pay cuts, and abandoning the corporate ladder entirely because the staggering cost of maintaining a fake rich image leaves them with absolutely zero savings at the end of every single month. You wake up at 5:15 in the morning to an alarm that feels like a physical blow to your chest. Your heart rate spiking before your feet even touch the floor of your $4,000 a month suburban rental. You do not even own this house, but you pay a massive premium to live in this exact neighborhood because your colleagues live here, the school district looks impressive on paper, and your neighbors park vehicles in their driveways that look exactly like yours. You spend the first 20 minutes of your day sitting on the edge of your bed, blinking through the harsh glare of your phone screen as you delete emails that arrived while you were sleeping, each one demanding a piece of your energy before the sun has even fully cleared the horizon. You stumble into the kitchen to grab coffee from an expensive countertop machine that you bought to save time, not money, because you no longer possess the luxury of waiting 5 minutes for a standard pot to brew. By 6:30, you are buckled into a leased European sport utility vehicle that costs $980 a month, not including the premium insurance policy that just went up another 12% last quarter. You sit in 90 minutes of gridlock traffic, staring blankly at the red brake lights of the sedan in front of you, wondering how an executive-level salary managed to feel exactly like the minimum wage shift you worked back in college. The raw financial math of your life makes absolutely no sense when you look at it on a spreadsheet. When you first signed the employment contract for this corporate role, you felt an overwhelming surge of adrenaline because you truly believed that hitting this specific income milestone would eliminate your stress forever. You thought the days of checking your available balance before tapping your card at the grocery store checkout counter were dead and buried. Instead, you find yourself doing frantic mental arithmetic every single 2 weeks when the direct deposit clears. You watch roughly $7,000 land in your primary checking account, and by the very next afternoon, nearly 85% of that cash has already been sucked out by an invisible network of automated drafts. The money vanishes instantly into the heavy fixed overhead of your simulated wealth, the inflated rent, the dual vehicle leases, the elite private childcare fees that resemble a second mortgage, and the country club membership you joined exclusively because your regional vice president spends his Saturdays on the 9th hole. You are participating in a highly coordinated, hyper-expensive performance of success, and the entry fee is consuming every single dollar you generate. This is the hidden exhaustion of upper-middle-class corporate life, a quiet epidemic sweeping through every major economic hub. You are part of an entire class of professionals who are waking up to the reality that a high income is not even close to the same thing as financial freedom. In fact, a high salary often functions as a highly sophisticated golden cage that requires an immense amount of personal capital to support. Your employer does not just buy your working hours. The corporate environment dictates your baseline level of consumption. You're expected to show up to client meetings in tailored clothing that costs a regular worker 2 weeks of wages. You are expected to reside in a gated development where the Homeowners Association fines you $200 if your grass grows a half inch past the permitted limit. You are expected to enroll your children in specialized summer camps that cost more than a full semester at a state university. If you choose not to participate in these social signaling rituals, the quiet consensus of the executive suite assumes something is fundamentally wrong with you. You get passed over for the high-profile project allocations because you do not look like management material. You get left off the guest list for the informal dinner parties where the real organizational decisions are made. You are forced to buy the props for the play just to be allowed to stay on the stage. Look closely at the daily operational expenses that no one warns you about when you enter management. Because you work 12 hours a day and your brain is entirely fried by the time you log off, you have zero remaining capacity for basic human domestic tasks. You do not have the time or energy to chop vegetables or prep meals on Sunday nights, so you spend $70 an evening on premium food delivery apps just to have lukewarm meals dropped on your doorstep at 9 o'clock at night. You do not have the time to clean your own bathrooms or scrub your own floors, so you pay $350 every 2 weeks to a cleaning crew to maintain a living space you barely inhabit. You do not have the time to push a lawnmower, so a landscaping service shows up every Tuesday to cut your grass and blow the debris away for a flat monthly fee. You are essentially outsourcing every single mechanical aspect of your own existence because your employer owns every usable hour of your day. You are paying a massive premium to buy back tiny, fragmented pieces of your own time, using the exact paycheck you earned by destroying your health to buy temporary relief from the stress caused by earning the paycheck. It is a completely broken, self-contained loop of financial insanity. The psychological toll of this lifestyle is a slow, grinding erosion of who you actually are. You begin to evaluate every single human interaction through the lens of time optimization, personal cost, and visual appearance. When an old friend from high school shoots you a text message asking to grab a casual drink, your brain does not register excitement. Instead, it automatically calculates the traffic patterns around the downtown cocktail lounge they suggested, the cost of the rideshare vehicle to get there, and the additional childcare hours required to cover your absence. A simple evening of human connection becomes a $300 line item that you have to aggressively squeeze out of your remaining discretionary budget. You find yourself looking at your peers who earn half as much money but possess twice as much peace, feeling a toxic wave of resentment. You see a coworker pull into the office garage in a brand new vehicle, and instead of feeling happy for them, you experience a cold spike of panic in your stomach, wondering if you need to upgrade your own lease immediately just to protect your standing in the next department alignment meeting. You are running a brutal race where the finish line keeps moving backward, and the spectators are all judging your footwear. Let us map out the anatomy of a typical month in this trap. Your gross monthly pay looks incredible when it sits on a hiring manager's desk, but then the tax withholding hits. Because you are a W-2 wage earner in a high bracket, the government takes a massive, uncompromised cut before you ever see a single cent. Then comes the mandatory deduction for your family health insurance plan, which carries a massive deductible despite the premium. You max out your corporate retirement plan because every personal finance book tells you it is the correct move, locking that liquidity away for the next 3 decades. What actually hits your checking account is a heavily diluted fraction of your headline salary. From that remaining balance, you pay $2,500 a month to a child development center that promises a bilingual curriculum for a toddler who can barely speak English yet. You pay $800 a month for a family grocery bill that has doubled due to inflation, largely because you're forced to buy pre-chopped fruit and convenience packages to save precious minutes. By the time you pay the utility bills for a house with way too many square feet to heat or cool efficiently, you are left with less than $400 of true disposable income. One broken vehicle transmission or an unexpected medical emergency will instantly push you into credit card debt. This extreme financial fragility creates a permanent, low-level undercurrent of fear that never leaves your body. You know with absolute certainty that you are exactly one corporate restructuring or one bad quarterly earnings report away from complete and total financial ruin. If your position is eliminated next Tuesday morning, you do not have 6 months of living expenses sitting safely in a high-yield account. You have maybe 21 days of true liquidity before the automated drafts begin to bounce, the luxury car leases default, and the landlord drops an eviction notice on your kitchen island. Hit like if you have ever looked at a massive paycheck and realized you had absolutely nothing left over to show for it. Subscribe for more hard truths about how money, debt, and corporate culture really work under the hood. Drop a comment below right now. What is your current income? And do you feel like you actually own your life, or does your lifestyle own you? This exact structural vulnerability is what makes you completely compliant inside the office. It turns you into a person who sits quietly and nods your head in agreement during a staff meeting when a senior director suggests a marketing strategy that you know is a complete disaster. It forces you to open your laptop at 11:30 on a Saturday night during a family vacation to answer a low-priority email from a vice president who does not even know your last name. You cannot afford to have a bold opinion. You cannot afford to take a creative risk, and you cannot afford to stand your ground on an ethical issue because your entire physical existence is built on a foundation of financial quicksand that requires a steady, unceasing injection of direct deposits to remain solid. You have traded your personal independence for a premium parking spot and a corporate title that means absolutely nothing the second you walk out of the building. The true breaking point arrives when you finally realize that the luxury upgrades no longer provide any form of emotional anesthesia. The very first time you sat in the leather seat of an upscale vehicle, the smell felt like tangible proof of your intelligence, talent, and worth ethic. The quartz countertops and high ceilings in your home do not bring you a single ounce of peace when you are standing under them at midnight, eating cold food out of a plastic container while staring at a massive action item list for the following morning. You are spending your life maintaining an expensive private museum of success that you do not have the time or the emotional capacity to actually inhabit. This deep existential fatigue is precisely why an unprecedented counter-movement is beginning to take shape across the professional world. High earners are quietly executing an exit strategy that corporate human resources departments are completely unprepared to handle. Capable professionals are walking into executive offices and voluntarily submitting their resignations. They are not leaving for a competitor who is offering a 15% raise and a sign-on bonus. They are walking away to take 50% pay cuts at tiny boutique firms, shifting to fully remote roles in low-cost rural areas, or stepping down into lower-titled support positions that carry zero management responsibilities. They are intentionally downgrading their professional status to aggressively upgrade their daily reality. They are looking at the math and realizing that if a $160,000 salary leaves you with zero savings and an $80,000 salary also leaves you with zero savings but hands you 20 extra hours of free time every week, the lower salary is actually the vastly superior financial decision. When you make the definitive choice to step off this corporate treadmill, the immediate reaction from your professional social circle is a mixture of profound confusion and subtle horror. Your colleagues look at you as if you have suffered a severe psychological breakdown or are hiding a terminal illness. They drop their voices when they see you in the break room, asking if everything is okay at home. The underlying reason for their reaction is simple. Your exit completely invalidates the massive daily sacrifice they are making to stay in the race. If you can live happily in a smaller, older house 40 miles outside the city, drive a generic sedan with a dent in the bumper, and leave your work laptop closed after 5 o'clock every day, it means that they could choose that path too. But choosing that path requires them to admit that the last decade of intense stress, chronic ulcers, missed family dinners, and permanent exhaustion was a voluntary choice, not a structural necessity. It is infinitely easier for them to assume you simply lacked the stamina for the high-stakes environment than to accept the reality that you looked at the prize at the end of the corporate track and realized it was completely hollow. The actual execution of downshifting your life requires a brutal, completely unsentimental audit of your identity. You have to sell the vehicles that carry the heavy monthly payments and replace them with basic, reliable transportation, paid for entirely in cash. You have to list the suburban home with the perfect zip code and find a living space based entirely on actual utility rather than social signaling. You have to look at your wardrobe, your hobbies, and your vacation choices, and strip away every single element that was designed to impress people you do not even like. You have to become entirely comfortable with the fact that when people ask you what you do at a social gathering, your answer will no longer elicit a murmur of polite approval or curiosity. You become ordinary. You become a person who simply works a job, rather than a person whose job is their entire identity. Yet, the mathematical reality of a lower income paired with low fixed expenses is incredibly liberating. When you remove the mandatory corporate image overhead from your life, your true cost of living drops off a cliff. You no longer need to spend thousands of dollars a year on convenience services because you actually have the time to cook a fresh meal, clean your own space, and manage your own property. You no longer find yourself spending obscene amounts of money on hyper-accelerated weekend vacations because you no longer need an emergency escape from the daily pressure of your environment. Your health stabilization reduces your medical expenditures, your sleep patterns normalize, and your cognitive clarity returns. You discover that a $75,000 income where you retain $15,000 in actual liquid savings at the end of the year feels infinitely more wealthy, stable, and powerful than a $200,000 income where your checking account hits double digits every single fortnight. You have less capital in the absolute sense, but you possess absolute dominion over the capital you hold. The landscape of professional employment is shifting, because the traditional leverage points are failing. Companies are realizing that they can no longer retain their most capable operators by simply increasing the bonus structure or adding a new tier to the title framework. The value of autonomy, time sovereignty, and geographic independence has completely eclipsed the value of an extra digit on a W-2 or a corporate tax document. The golden handcuffs have lost their utility because people have finally figured out that regardless of how highly polished the metal is, the handcuffs still tie your wrists to a desk that belongs to someone else. The traditional ladder is being exposed as a labyrinth with no exit, and the people who were supposed to lead the next generation of corporate leadership are quietly walking toward the emergency exits and stepping out into the fresh air. This transition is not a flawless solution to the human condition. It does not magically solve every single problem in your life. You will still have to manage a monthly budget, navigate the complexities of inflation, pay your property taxes, and deal with the realities of health insurance costs. You will still have to report to a supervisor, complete tasks you find tedious, and deal with workplace politics on a smaller scale. The fundamental difference is the height of the stakes. When your entire physical existence, your housing security, and your social standing do not depend on maximizing every single dollar of an inflated salary, you regain your personal sovereignty. You gain the ability to look at an unreasonable demand from a senior partner and say no, without the fear that an adverse reaction will result in immediate financial ruin. You trade the fragile, hollow architecture of corporate luxury for the heavy, immovable foundation of personal peace. The spreadsheet tracking your life does not have a column for your self-respect. The modern corporate economic system is perfectly calibrated to extract your maximum physical and mental output, returning just enough status, prestige, and disposable capital to ensure you remain entirely dependent on the next payroll cycle. You can spend the next 2 decades increasing your velocity on the treadmill, trying to earn enough money to fund an extravagant lifestyle you are too busy to actually experience. Or you can accept the hard truth that the prize at the end of the corporate track is never going to be worth the cost of the ticket. The organization will post your job opening online before your seat is cold, but no one is coming to return the years you traded away to maintain a corporate image that never belonged to you in the first place. Your paycheck will never be large enough to buy back the time you are burning right now.